Hi again. This is part 2 to my video about how to fly with a Great Dane puppy, or how to travel in cabin with a Great Dane puppy. If you haven't caught my previous video, I'm going to see if I can try to link it in the section below here. I'm not too savvy with this YouTube thing yet, so to forgive me, and also forgive me for the quality of my videos. I don't have a professional camera yet. So the first part of the first video, I talked about the products that I use and the size of my Dane and kind of just some basic odds and ends. I really wanted to take this second part to talk about how I went through the process. So from the day I arrived, so the day I went to go get the puppy, and then I stayed overnight, and then the following day we traveled back home. And I wanted to walk people through, how that went as far as having a puppy in tow and doing all of the stuff and things. For the sake of brevity, I'm going to omit some of the details that were in the previous video. If you can try to go find it again, I'll try to link it below. But I came in on an airline, a different airline than the airline I flew out on. And the first thing that I did when I got to the airport, before I even went to go pick up the puppy, was stop over at the Southwest ticket counter. So my return flight was with Southwest, and I explained before why I went with going with Southwest, because of their pet policy and things like that. But before I left the airport, I stopped at the ticket counter to ask a ticket agent and let them know, yes, I've already confirmed or checked in for my flight leaving tomorrow morning, but I did want to alert you that I will be traveling with a pet. And is there something that I need to do? Do I need to get on a list? Or do you limit the number of pets that are able to fly on the plane? She'd indicated to me that she didn't know of any limitation as far as how many pets they allowed on a plane. I think that's disputable. She just may not have known. But she just let me know that there's really nothing else that I need to do apart from when I arrive at the airport the following day. I needed to check in at the ticket counter. I couldn't just go right to security. I had to check in at the ticket counter and then pay the $95 pet fee, and they'll put a tag on the pet carrier. And that's really all I needed to do. After that, I went over to the hotel and I checked into the hotel. As a precautionary thing, I was going to stay overnight and then fly out the next day, but I was staying overnight with the puppy just as a precaution, because I didn't know what the potty training, if any, would be for the puppy, and I just didn't want to get hit with any exorbitant cleaning fees if the puppy ended up having an accident or something. I just let them know that I was going to be staying with an animal, staying with the puppy. It was an extra $75, but it's fine. It's worth it, just to kind of have, to be safe. That's kind of why they have that pet fee there, is just to cover any extra cleaning costs. So after I did that, I went to go get my new little Duncan, and one of the things that I did when I brought the carrier along was I had it collapsed. You can kind of take it apart, and I kind of had it broken down, so I only had to carry one backpack with me, not two things for the trip out there. But I put the carrier together when I got over to where the puppy was, and it took a little bit of coaxing, some treats and toys in order to get him to go in, and he was really wary of it at first. I didn't have the luxury of being able to have him get used to the carrier. This was the first time I was meeting this dog. This was the first time I was able to interact with him. It was just the circumstances around how I got the puppy meant that this is a friend of mine. We've known each other for 20 years. His dog accidentally had a litter, and he was just trying to find homes for him. But anyway, making sure that Duncan fit in the carrier was a big deal for me. It was the whole return trip was really predicated on whether or not he fit comfortably in the carrier. So seeing that he did, and was able to still, get up, move around, turn around and lay back down and kind of lay all the way out. He wasn't crunched or anything like that. Made it fine. I was comfortable with that. He was able to sit up and put his head through. If I had waited a week, I don't know that I would have been comfortable with him fitting in there. I don't think he would have fit comfortably at all. So at that point, we left. We went back to the hotel. He whined a little bit when we got into the carrier, and it wasn't his favorite thing. As soon as I kind of unzipped the top part so he could stick his face through, he felt a lot better and he kind of calmed down. It took a little bit to get him used to it, but we got back to the hotel and took him right outside. He wasn't really accustomed to going potty outside. I think when his puppyhood up till then, when he was going to relieve himself, they used puppy pads indoors. And so he just started introducing the outside to the rest of the litter, so I don't know that he completely got the concept yet, but it took a little bit of encouragement. It took a while just to walk him around to where he just felt that he needed to go. So if you have a new puppy who's not accustomed to it, just be patient, and you might need to spend a little extra time to encourage them to go outside. And sorry about that. When we went inside the hotel, I was really paranoid. Even though I paid the pet fee, I didn't want him free roaming the hotel room because I didn't know if he would, despite the fact that we went outside, I didn't know if he would mess on the carpet. I didn't want him chewing on anything. I just didn't want to leave him unattended at all. The breeder, my friend, did give me some puppy pads to take with me. And I ended up putting a puppy pad in the stand-up shower that was in the hotel room. He never used it, so it's convenient that I had it, but Duncan never used it. He instead, he did have an accident on the tile in the bathroom, on the bathroom floor, but again, it was tile, and I'd mentioned in my previous video about one of the things that I wish that I had brought with me that I didn't even consider was some Clorox wipes or some baby wipes or some sort of antiseptic wipe for situations like that. I did clean up the mess using, paper towels and soap and water and everything. I got it clean, but in that instance, I think it just really just as a precaution, as sort of just to make sure you're prepared for it. He slept fine. I think I was a little more paranoid. I didn't want him falling off the bed or anything, so I didn't get a whole lot of sleep, but he slept fine. The following morning, it was again the same situation. I didn't want to put him down, only because I thought that if I did, he'd pedal on the floor, and he did again, but it was in the bathroom, not on the puppy pad, but on the tile floor, which was easily cleanable. And again, so before we went back to the airport, we did spend some more time outside, just so he could get everything out if he needed to. I haven't fed him at this point yet, and I'm going to talk about why in just a couple seconds. But I didn't want to feed him outside and have to go through all the rigmarole and the excitement of going through security and all that kind of stuff in the chance that it might upset his tummy and we could have a bigger issue. So I waited until I got to the airport to do the first feeding. It's worth mentioning that this whole day started at ass o'clock in the morning. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning when I got up with him, and my flight was at 6:30. So this was all happening very, very early in the day. The first thing I did when I got to the airport is go to that TSA ticket counter and, talk to the Southwest ticket counter, I'm sorry, and just let them know that, hey, I'm traveling with a pet, here's my pet, pay the fee. They did not ask to weigh Duncan. They did not make me put the carrier on the scale. They did not check to see how he fit in his carrier. They were not scrutinizing anything. If anything, she was like, oh my god, he's so cute. There's none of that where they were really inspecting the carrier or the pet to make sure he fit inside. They didn't do any of that. Just took my credit card, charged me, and put a tag on the carrier, and I was set to go. We went up to security, and this is just my experience with security. There have been other people who have put videos up about going through TSA checkpoints with a pet. This is just my experience. Everybody's probably going to tell you the same thing. Yes, you have to take your dog out of the carrier. This is where the TSA Fast Pass leash and collar come into play. Even though I never put Duncan down on the floor, mostly because I didn't want him having an accident in the middle of the airport and then being judged by the masses. But it just helps going through the security checkpoint so there's no metal or anything on the leash or collar. Yes, you have to take off your shoes. Yes, you still have to put all of your electronic devices and all your stuff and things in the bins and on the conveyor belt. You still have to do all of that. Just because you have a cute puppy doesn't exclude you from having to do all that stuff. Once you go through, they don't make you go through the scanner, where you have to stand with your hands. They make you go through ye old metal detector. And once you do that, you carry your dog through the metal detector, and then they swab the palms of your hands. What they swab for, I'm unsure, but they'll just, if you're clear and everything, they just kind of wave you on through. My bag did get flagged, so this is a helpful hint for those who do plan to travel and go through and take your pet through TSA. If you're traveling with dog food or pet food or something like that, I got 2 gallon-size plastic Ziploc bags full of the puppy's food that he was currently on, so I had some to transition with as I was moving him to the new food. Take those out, much like you would your toiletries when you put your stuff in the bins before you go through the scanner. They flagged my backpack as it was going through the thing just because they needed to see that. And I'd never done it before, so I didn't know, but just warning in the future, if you intend to do it, go ahead and make sure you take those out just so they can see it. There was nothing wrong with it. They didn't need to test it. They didn't scrutinize it or question it. They just needed to verify, oh, it's dog food. As soon as I got everything kind of all back together, I put Duncan back in his carrier. Again, I didn't want him free roaming around. I didn't want him peeing anywhere. So first stop we made after we kind of collected ourselves at TSA was the pet relief area. And at that point is where I let him out of his kennel or his carrier to go to the potty if he needed to, and that's where we ate. So throughout this whole trip, the flight trip with him, I decided to ration his food and water. And I don't say that to come across as mean. I did it for a reason. I didn't want him to starve, right? I didn't want to not feed him, but I also didn't want to overfeed him, so that if we were in a position where we couldn't go out to the pet relief area or he had to wait, a long time, I didn't want him to be uncomfortable while we were in a position where we couldn't do anything about it. So I kind of held back. I fed him several times throughout the day, kind of from my hand. So while he didn't get, what would have been 3 cups of food, in the entirety of the day broken up into 3 meals, he got a similar equivalent several more times throughout the day so that it was easier. He didn't feel full. He wasn't uncomfortable. Same thing with the water. I didn't let him overly drink. He could have a little bit, and I just had my own water that I bought at the airport and just poured in the cup for him. At that point, I allowed myself, between the flights that I had, I allowed enough time so that the longest flight that I had was 2 hours and 40 minutes, and then I deliberately had at least an hour and a half layover in between, and I did that on purpose. I didn't want the layover to be too long where he would get bored or, it would kind of throw off a time schedule. I also didn't want it to be too short so that we ran out of time and we couldn't get to a pet relief area. So just judging the length of your flights and then how long your layover is, I think is really important when you decide you're going to fly with your pet. And then the return flight was a little less. It was a little shorter. But we timed out our time in the relief period, or the relief area, so that it was, enough time for us to do what we need to do. He could play, he could eat, he could relieve himself. We could collect ourselves again, and by the time we got to the gate, that's when they were boarding. So that's how we did that. As far as boarding the plane, getting on the plane, I elected to sit in an aisle seat, only because it is much easier to get the carrier in and out from beneath the seat in front of you if you're sitting in an aisle seat. Everybody was super nice. Duncan didn't make a peep. He slept through landing and takeoff. He only was awake for a brief period during the first flight because it was longer, and when he was awake, I took that opportunity to, feed him some more kibble and then, give him some water. I'm going to have to wrap this up. I'm almost at 15 minutes. Last thing I wanted to make sure is if you're going to feed your puppy from your hand, just make sure your hands are clean. Take every opportunity to wash your hands. I didn't use hand sanitizer or anything like that because I didn't want him ingesting any of the hand sanitizer. And then the last thing is to really consider how long, if you want anybody to pet your pet. A lot of people are going to want to pet your puppy, and I think it's on you to determine if you do or don't. For germs, you don't know how the puppy's going to react or how other people are going to react. So that's the long and short of it. I'm going to really kind of truncate this for the last couple of seconds. So if I need to do a follow-up, I'll probably do a follow-up. But thank you very much, everyone.